not they've engaged in this before, because I'm all for training modules. I'm all for doing something different. I'm all for taking the PPL's recommendations, but something went wrong now, and we can't just kind of brush that off and say, well, in the future we're going to train better. In the future we're going to make sure this didn't happen before, because clearly we didn't learn our lessons from the Democratic National Convention in 2000.
The disciplinary process is what it is, and is prescribed by law, by the consent decree, by charter. I also, along with the mayor, supported the bill that Senator Romero's colleagues voted on, that the council yesterday voted to support, the issue of more transparency to the disciplinary process. And the Inspector General reviews all of our disciplinary actions, so when we take matters before the Police Commission, he makes his comments, his recommendations, and our findings. So, in answer to all of your questions, the answer is that we are working in a very comprehensive, coordinated fashion, always operating within the limits of the laws and procedures we have to follow, and that we are not seeking to be circumspect, not seeking to be in denial. This was an extraordinarily serious event, and actions I could take immediately, the removal of the command staff involved. I believe I have the right to trust that my two-star chiefs will lead, and in the execution and adaptability that were exhibited in this case by the leadership team there was seriously flawed. And so to ensure that that would not happen again, they were removed from positions in which they could, in fact, command and control at a future time, at a future event. I have to have that comfort level that the leadership will not make some of the same mistakes that were made at MacArthur Park, which are quite obvious. And to that end, that's where even while we can investigate more extensively, there was enough information available to me to make the moves that I made. And in terms of Chief Hillman's responsibility is, to the best of our ability, to try to train the command staff on what we're supposed to do, and also on adaptability. The idea is the best laid plans, you always have to be in a position to adapt to changing circumstances. And the adaptability to the changing circumstances in this event was seriously flawed, and should not have occurred.
District 8 Councilmember Bernard Parks asked Chief Bratton to describe what the scene was like on his arrival.
Could you give us a brief description of what you saw when you got to the scene? Was the event over? Was the crowd dispersed, or just what were the conditions?
That's correct. I arrived at the scene at approximately 6:50, 6:55, and at that time I arrived at Parkview and 6th. And that was Parkview and Wilshire. And that was no, I'm going to apologize. We went to the other end of the park, Parkview and 6th. And met there with Chief Pasinger, who I had requested to respond to the scene, Chief Carter, Commander Gray, Captain Egan, and also Andre Barat arrived almost simultaneously, a short time thereafter, with me, as well as Chief Perez from our Professional Standards Bureau. All of them I had requested to respond to the scene for briefing. The event was in fact over. The crowd had been dispersed. Most of the remaining activity, which was some small groups of agitators, was occurring 3 to 4 blocks away from that location. At that location, there were a number of news media gathered. There were also a number of the principal organizers of the group who were there just talking with the news media.
And joining us now by phone is Los Angeles City Council President Eric Garcetti. Mr. President, always good to have you on Council Week in Review.
Thanks so much, Jack. Great to be back.
We've been hearing at length about this City Council task force looking into the events of May 1st and beyond. What are the objectives? What are you trying to achieve with the task force?
Well, one thing we didn't want it to be was another layer of investigation. We wanted this to be oversight of all of the investigations that are ongoing, and to ensure that the public's voice is heard in these investigations, so that we can make sure that the community, that people who are involved in the area around MacArthur Park, the police unions, individual officers if they want, that everybody would have a place that their voice would be heard, and to ensure that these investigations are really targeted towards getting at the bottom of what went wrong and how we can prevent it in the future.
If you're looking specifically for public input as well as the formal investigations, where would meetings like this be held? How will you make them public? How will people know?
Well, the first one we held in the community, in a school adjacent to MacArthur Park. The next meeting, which will probably be in about a week and a half, most likely will be back in the community as well. And we want to make it as easy, as friendly, as open, and as accessible to members of the MacArthur Park Westlake neighborhood, to ensure that nobody feels that they have to go long distance. We'll probably have some hearings at City Hall, which is close by, of course, but we really want to emphasize that this is a wonderful community, a place where people have done tremendous work in the last few years to make it safe, and that we want to be able to protect people's rights to be able to be out there, be it media, be it a group of lawful assemblers, or be it police officers themselves.
Speaking of which, of course, we've seen Chief Bratton before the council last week, again this week. Preliminary reports on the investigation that he's been giving you bits and drabs of. When can we expect a final report?
Well, we had a good update, 30 days, that we mandated to come back, and that was last week and this week. They estimate in another 30 days they'll come back to the full council. But the work of the task force is to keep up every week or two with the ongoing investigations. The information we learned this past week was very helpful in looking at a timeline of what happened. Certainly we got the perspective from the eyes of the police in terms of what went wrong and what was going on with some of the agitators. We asked for more detail in describing what would you do differently, how should policy change, and what institutional shifts does the Los Angeles Police Department need to undertake to make sure that everybody is protected and doing their job, be it cameramen and camerawomen from the media, be it people who are out there expressing their First Amendment rights as Americans, or be it the members of the police department themselves, who we want to feel safe, and we want them to do their job in as clear and transparent a way as possible.
Of course, people who have been watching this program, watching you people work, have noticed that you've asked for the command staff that was in charge during the incident at MacArthur Park come before council to explain what happened, to submit themselves to your questions. So far, they've not complied, and I've heard some people say, wait a minute, isn't that insubordination? What's going on here?
We have asked, led by Councilmember Zine, Councilmember Parks, and some others, have asked for the incident commanders who have been spoken for by the chief and others. Their actions and decisions have been described by the department, to have the opportunity to come before us and give their side of the story. They may turn that down, and under the Police Officers' Bill of Rights, they have the option to whether they want to come or not when a formal request has been made. But we wanted to ensure that the police department was making that request, and what we found out this week was that request had not yet been made, that everybody just assumed that they'd say no. I think that those officers have to make those decisions themselves, and that there could be a great deal of very important information added by hearing what it was like on the ground from those commanders themselves. If they do refuse, the council does have subpoena power, but we need to look at what's the most effective way of getting to the bottom of what happened. And obviously, with personnel investigations going on, some of these individuals may want to prefer to remain silent and let those investigations go their way.
And also, I gather that it's quite possible that in making some early personnel moves during the first week after May 1st, Chief Bratton may have put some people beyond your reach with subpoenas.
Yes. Well, no, we have actually, our subpoena power is across the board. It's not just for city employees. So if we exercise that subpoena power, that's something that we could ask of any resident, anybody who's here in Los Angeles. But that's the nuclear option if we can't get the information in any other way. And if the investigations are doing their work in the right way, we should not only have their answers in the detailed reports that will be issued, but if there are any fragile or delicate issues that we need to hear in closed session, we have that option to go into closed session to ensure that we're protecting the city against liability, and to ensure that we're protecting the privacy of those investigations. But we are really bending over backwards to make this as public a process, because the public, after all, was the ones that were affected, and they deserve to make sure that their government is ensuring this doesn't happen again.
And I have a feeling you'll also get some pretty extensive media coverage, because members of the media and obviously our professional organizations are very interested in watching this as well.
Unquestionably, and we've been working very closely actually with a number of media organizations to push LAPD to articulate what the media protocols, which we had seen develop after the Democratic National Convention of 2000, those protocols had been put in place. It seems like many of those were not followed, and so we want to ensure that the task force, probably one of the meetings will be exclusively to hear from the media what went wrong, and logistically, how can we set these things up better to ensure not only, of course, that the excesses we saw never happen again, but to ensure the smooth flow of information and that the rights of the media, even in chaotic situations, are protected. And that's the heart of the matter for me, is that even when things get tough, the DNC protocols guarantee that the press can stay on site in the midst of a skirmish because it's very important for accountability. It's very important for Angelenos to know what's going on in their city. And when we lose the ability for the press to tell that story, it's a sad day for all of us.
You've had a chance to hear from several members of the command staff of the LAPD. Will the officers who are actually on the front line May 1st, as well as the participants in the march who have been identified possibly as agitators, will they be investigated, disciplined, brought before the City Council?
Well, not before the City Council. I mean, the agitators, for instance, won't be coming to testify before us. I mean, this is, again, not an independent investigation. What it is we are trying to ensure that the oversight and the actions are occurring to right what was wrong and to make sure that there is justice served here. Justice served may mean disciplining some police officers, protecting other ones so that there's no scapegoats, making sure that agitators have indeed been investigated, arrested where they were assaulting officers or anything else, and at the same time that the members of the press and the regular people that were out there, that their concerns, their injuries and other things are addressed. So we're not looking to do the investigation. We are ensuring that the police commission does its job and the inspector general, that anything that goes on at the FBI level or the district attorney's office is folded into that mix, and that at the end of the day, the department, with its internal investigations unit, makes sure that the discipline necessary will occur while the policy changes for the long haul.
And, of course, you as council president and your fellow council members, you do have a fiduciary responsibility here. 42 people hurt, 7 police officers included. In terms of lawsuits, this could cost Los Angeles taxpayers a good deal of money to get, couldn't it?
Absolutely. All Angelenos, all of us will pay for this, which is why it is such an important issue. This is not an isolated incident where a couple people may have crossed the line. This is something that we all are going to pay for, quite literally, for some time. And to ensure that we don't pay this sort of money out again for the violations of folks' civil rights, and that we protect our police officers when those sort of provocations occur, we are smarter, we are better, and we should have the training than what was reflected that day on May 1st. And I have tremendous respect for the men and women who put on a uniform every single day to protect us, but we also have to protect our rights and the rights of the media, and that's the heart of this matter. That's our not only fiduciary responsibility, that is our moral obligation.
Well, we will all be watching with your help. District 13 Council Member and Council President Eric Garcetti, thanks for joining us on Council Week in Review.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure.
There was no vote necessary on item number 33, the continued consideration of the Los Angeles Police Department and Board of Police Commissioners' report to the Council. The matter will stay open for further reports to the Special Task Force. Watch Council Week in Review for highlights of the week's council meetings and listen for item numbers associated with those discussions you have an interest in. Then go to the World Wide Web and listen to those discussions in their entirety using the new City of Los Angeles Video on Demand feature. Visit the city's website at lacity.org and follow the instructions on the screen. Now, if you have suggestions or comments about any of the programs you see here on Channel 35 or would like to receive a free viewer guide, call our viewer hotline at 213-473-3978. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending June 8th, 2007. On behalf of Antoinette Feliciano and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Hi, I'm your neighbor from down the street, and I've seemed to have lost my cat. She's pregnant, and I'm just really concerned.
Recently, numerous elderly citizens in the city of Los Angeles have become victims of distraction burglaries.
Well, certainly. Come on in. We'll go through.
Thank you so much.
Distraction burglary differs from a standard burglary in that the suspects in these particular crimes confront the victims.
Distraction burglaries involve a number of different types of ruses.
The suspects will tell the victims that there's a cat in the backyard, usually a pregnant cat, or their son or small child threw a ball in the backyard, that they're tree trimmers and they'd like to trim their trees or their bushes, or they disguise themselves as utility workers and they need to check the water pipes and the electrical wires in the rear of the location.
In many types of ruses, the main objective of the suspect is to get the victims into their backyard. Recently, a 70-year-old woman was a victim of this ruthless crime.
At about 3:15, the doorbell rang. I should never have done it, but I opened up the door to this woman. And she said, "Oh, I'm your new backyard neighbor, and I wanted to introduce myself. And because you have such pretty trees in the back, I want to put some topping over it because we're going to sandblast the house. I really don't know my backyard neighbors." I looked at her with a little doubt, but then I said, I really don't want to antagonize her. She's going to be my backyard neighbor. So I very foolishly led her into the house and into the backyard. And into the process, I forgot to close the lock on the door. She knew every part of my backyard, and she knew my neighbor's backyard. She said, "Well, the pool's too close to the house, and your fence is rickety." I said, "I know." She said, "Oh, but don't worry. We're going to fix everything. You don't have to worry about anything."
Well, the suspects in the case are very smooth. They're very good with their verbal skills, and they're able to fool the victims into believing whatever it is that they're trying to get the victims to believe. And it generally only takes a few minutes, and the victims are very compliant, and the suspects make off with their valuables in just a few minutes.
I'm learning from my own mistakes, and at this age, I didn't think I had that much to learn, but I obviously do.
You're watching LA City View, Channel 35.
Good morning. Today is Tuesday, June 12th, 2007. This is a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council. We meet Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 o'clock. If you are unable to be here in person, you can view it on Channel 35 or on the Los Angeles City's website. We are still asking for members to be present for a quorum. A thank you to Ms. Hahn, Mr. Labange, Mr. Parks, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Smith, Mr. Wesson, Mr. Zine, and Mr. Garcetti. We are waiting for, looks like, one more member for a quorum. We asked Mr. Cardenas, Mr. Weisar, one of them to make their way down to the council chambers so we can begin our meeting. It is 10:10, and if we do not reach a quorum soon, we may ask for an adjourning motion.
Madam President, if I may, if I could, just
Mr.
say a
Labange.
few words since we're waiting for someone, and then you could cut me off, if that's possible. No, that's all right.
Sure, Mr. Labange, please.
Thank you very much.
We have some guests with us today that
I
you'd
have
like
some
to
very
introduce.
special guests from Phoenix, the city of Phoenix, one of the greatest cities in the country, a growing city. They're here. They're for guests of our Department of Transportation and sign shops, and we're welcome. Jackie Mustafa, come up here, Jackie, who is with the Department of Transportation. Please introduce our special guest, if you will.
Well, we're very fortunate to have with us Jenny Grote and John from City of Phoenix. They're responsible for all of the paint and sign operation for City of Phoenix, and they brought their staff supervisors with them to see what we're doing over here so they can take it back to them. And I was fortunate enough to go to their city to find out what they're doing that we can implement here. Thank you. Jenny?
Thank you very much for this opportunity today, and I can't thank you enough for allowing our sign shop personnel to come here and find out Zaki's secrets to how he runs such a successful signing and striping shop. And on behalf of the City of Phoenix, I would like to present a book on the city and welcome you also and reciprocate the wonderful hospitality we've received here. So on behalf of the Street Transportation Department, we'd like you to come.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. In 1961, on a Saturday afternoon, my uncle stopped by the house. My mother was ill, but she recovered from it. But all of a sudden, I got on a plane and flew to Arizona, and I lived at Hayden McDowell. Is that in Phoenix or just outside Phoenix? Right? Scottsdale, right there. There was just a Circle K and nothing else. That was all that was around the corner. But I saw Phoenix grow, and congratulations on the coming Super Bowl, which will be in Glendale, I know. But if it's not for Phoenix, there wouldn't be all these other great little cities, including the University of Arizona State University in Tempe and all of that there. And Camelback Mountain, I remember the greatest grapefruit I ever ate was on the Camelback Mountain.
I live in that area. You're welcome to come and stay at my home.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Thank you. I got 2 dogs and a cat and 3 children. All right. Beautiful wife. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's welcome our friends for the great city of Phoenix. Huh? Thank you.
Again, I'd ask Mr. Cardenas and Mr. Weisar to make their way down to the City Council chambers. It is 10:15. If not, we may entertain a motion for adjournment. Mr. Labange, did you want to? Thank you.
I want to ask Zaki if you come back to the microphone just for a little overview, Zaki. If we're on the background right here, we have over 7,000 miles of city streets. How many intersections have signals?
We have 4,300 signalized intersections.
4,300 signalized intersections. And how many stop signs in the city, you think?
We have about 41,000 stop signs.
41,000 stop signs. Is that individual stop signs, or is that like as a 4-way, you count it 4 times or once?
Councilmember. Oh gosh, test time. I think it's about 41,000 intersections that we
41,000
have. Yes.
intersections of stop signs that are there. We manufacture.
No, how could it be? We only have 39,000 intersections throughout the city.
Right, that's why you're a math major. This is good. But also, I want to tell our friends from Phoenix, this we just got a chance to filibuster as they do. We have a great sign shop led by Craig Green, who's a tremendous man you're going to meet in a few minutes. And he does a wonderful job in there, and signs are very important. We hate when people graffiti them or mark them up, as you do too, because it's disappointing to see that. But they try to do the best job to keep them coated in that. And how many people in our sign shop manufacturing?
Right now in our sign shop, we have about 5 people, but it'd be surprising. Their sign shop, they're fabricating over 60,000 signs a year, and they're installing them as well. Last year, we did about 110,000 signs for our city.
And does Phoenix also manufacture signs for other cities, or just for the city of Phoenix?
Just for the city of Phoenix.
Oh, that's good there. And what sign do we get vandalized or stolen the most in Los Angeles? Not to publicize it, but...
Well, the one that's the most costliest is the school zone signs.
Which one?
School zone signs. They're about $150 a piece, and what the latest thing is to really tagging them by knife. And that really vandalizes our signs because the anti-graffiti shield comes off on it, and then we have to replace them.
That's unfortunate. So, anything else? How's Miss Jeff? Everybody in the
Miss Gloria Jeff is doing great. She says hi to you all. She could have been here, but she was busy.
And how's Hyperion and Monon, the new traffic signal that's going to be installed, Zachy?
Do you see how our council member is?
You got it there. Hyperion and Monon.
Hyperion and Monon is doing great. Last I checked, about a week and a half ago, we are installing the conduit run at that location right now, and we are on target to have that intersection completed by end of July.
End of July. It's very important. Let's again welcome the great city of Phoenix, which is our city to the east. I know we now have the most precious value commodity in water, and now you get your greater share from the Colorado over your agreements we have, but I know that it's so important of what Phoenix does as another city of the West. We wish you well in all the things that you do, and you have a wonderful zoo. I visited your zoo there, and a great zoo, so let's give Phoenix another hand there. Sorry.
We are on. We are ready. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Weston, Zion, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Smith moves. Mr. Weisar seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Those will be approved.
Madam President, this is Tuesday, and there's a flag salute that's been agendized.
Yes, maybe we could ask our guests from Phoenix to stand at the microphone and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us. One of you? We could ask everyone to please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're supposed to have lunch someday.
Someday.
Thank you very much. Next order.
Madam President, do you wish to take public comment at this time?
I think we'll run through the agenda, and then we will go to public comment.
On the regular agenda, items 1 and 2 are business improvement district items, notice for public hearing, and there are cards on both of those matters.
Those items will be called special.
Items 3 through 8 are street lighting district items, notice for public hearing. Council should continue the hearings and ordinances to July 3rd.
Those will be continued to July 3rd.
Items 9 through 19 are items for which public hearings have been held. On item 19, there are 2 reports on file, and I do believe that the Plum report should be adopted.
Okay, colleagues, any specials? Yes, Mr. 19. Okay.
But 17 and 15?
17 and 15. I think would you like to call the special? Okay.
Well, I mean, you know.
Okay, next item.
Dennis, you want to do 16?
16.
Oh. 16?
16, okay.
For Dennis.
Dennis, okay.
16? Yeah.
Any other specials, colleagues? We have 15, 16, 17, and 19 called special. I know 9 and 10 are ordinances. If we do happen to have 12 members at one point, we'll maybe reconsider those items, but we'll go ahead and approve them now. Madam Clerk, if you could please open the roll on the remaining items, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Those items have been approved. Next items?
Items 20 through 34, items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration, and there are cards on a number of items.
Okay, which items do we have cards on? I know I have some of them here.
22, 23, 28, 30, 32, and 33.
Okay, it looks like they also brought up cards on 20 and 21 as well. So those will be called special. Any other specials, colleagues? Mr. Parks?
Yes, 32, and also like forthwith on 13 and 14.
Forthwith on 13 and 14?
13 and 14.
Okay, those will be forthwith. Any other items, colleagues, called special? If not, Madam Clerk, if you could please open the roll on the remaining items. Close the roll. Tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Thank you. Those items have been approved. Next item.
On the supplemental agenda, item 35 is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration. And it was my understanding that a substitute motion may be introduced today. Do you wish to hold that on the table?
Yes, we'll hold that on the table. I do see as well, Mr. Clerk, that there is a card that's been put in on item number 34 that we just approved, so we'll have to reconsider that item and call that special based on a card. We'll hold 35. If we could reconsider item number 34. Madam Clerk, open the roll on reconsideration, close the roll, and tabulate the votes. That items have been put back on a special with the card. Mr. Clerk, any other items?
That takes care of the items called special. Do you wish to go back to public comment?
We will go back to public comment. We have three cards from the San Fernando Valley. First is Donna Perlman, followed by Miriam Fogler, and followed by Sharon Brewer. If we can go out to our Van Nuys office.
Is Donna Perlman first?
Yes, Donna Perlman first.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, I'd say, Councilman Rosendahl, we need a two-thirds vote on the ballot issues. You said you wanted a simple majority, and that's not good because we need to protect us from frivolous fees and higher taxes. Anyway, I'm Donna Perriman, member of the Eric Garcetti Club. I've been reading on the internet about how you are not supporting the condo conversion memorandum. The article said Councilman Herb West, and no friend to apartment owners, naturally was against the condo conversion. The sanitizer bill, so it would be ineffective, is ramrolled by most of the city council who didn't want to offend the rich developers. Is that true? Don't think I'm only mad at the Councilman Herb Westman. I'm mad at all of you, except for Councilman Rosendahl. Because the housing situation is horrible. Most people use half or more than half of their paycheck to pay for rent. But now they'll have to have trouble finding available places to rent. It said 4,000 apartments have been converted to condos. What stopped 1,000 more apartment owners deciding they need more money in a condo conversion backed by the city council? City council, remember, most of your districts are anyway from very poor to middle class. They don't have everything given to them on a silver platter. With the CRA also wanting eminent domain, ruining the city with their high-density projects and stealing city money, so our city will be shortchanged. The San Fernando Valley, maybe all of LA, is falling apart, but you won't admit that. While you say everything is better than ever, while you continually add more fees, like the trash fee, which should be trashed. Personally, you seem like nice men and women who are want to be help them, but put all this together and it's disaster. We don't want these awful condos that only service the upper class. Please listen to concerns department managers and renters. Anyway, please, if this Rosendahl thing is good for Rosendahl, please let it pass it and let it go forthwith.
Thank you. Miriam Fogler.
Bringing your attention to tomorrow's agenda is the redevelopment thing. It wants to be reinstated as an ordinance, and I'm opposed to this redevelopment. We don't need it. We have a lot of problems down here in the city. We have budget problems. You're going to pass an assessment on the people, and here you're raising the water rates because you need to make improvements. You need to raise the rates on the trash to improve the sanitation in the city, our recycling, the water storm, the water drains, our sewers have not been replaced for 100 years or so. Our infrastructure is very bad. It's 100 years old, at least, folks. We need to fix this, and we need to give all the city workers and all the police and fire the pay raises that they deserve. They can't keep paying the high raise, the cost of the gas, even though I know it went down a few cents, but it's still no consolation how much everything has gone up, way up. You can't even get a hamburger. It's very hard to get a hamburger for 99 cents. It's usually it's a lot more than that now. And, look at the homes. Even if you think it's going down, it's not. And if you think that building high estates for the only upper income, the upper income needs the middle class, and the middle class needs the lower class. They all need to be working together, and if they're all going to be fighting like cats and dogs for everything, it's nothing going to be ending up but going back to the beginning when the world started 5,000 years ago, 63 to the Jewish calendar. Just letting you know that's how bad it is today, and God be with us.
Ms. Brewer. Sharon Brewer?
Yes. Hi, Sharon Brewer. This is regarding the Encino Neighborhood Council election, June 28, 2007. I have taken and requested from the election chair 3 times, 524, 61, and 66, to find out whether or not the election procedures had been approved by Dunn. I ended up having to take and send a public records request to Dunn on June 8th to find out whether or not there is such an approved election procedures. The election is June 28, 2007, which is 16 days away. And I have not gotten a response from Carol Thorpe regarding this matter, other than they would look into it. I sent a letter on June 6th to Carol Thorpe about a meeting with the project coordinator that was here on Friday, June 1st, and that he provided me no information. The vote-by-mail application that was available at the May meeting for the Encino Neighborhood Council had no date of the election, no place to go and send the request for vote-by-mail, and no date that it said it needed to be sent back. All of these problems, most of them could have been addressed had they taken my challenge last year seriously when I challenged Encino's elections. Something has to be done. This is a done problem at the top, followed by ENC not taking care of stuff. Switching gears, Lake Balboa on the weekend. Still safety problems with cars parking on the bike path. Called Office of Public Safety twice for them to come out. When I first called, there were only 2 cars on the bike path, and it proceeded to have more cars on there. These are lawsuits waiting to happen. There needs to be some kind of law enforcement on a permanent basis at Lake Balboa. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come back downtown. We have 2 public comment cards. Lucille Caruso, followed by Zuma Dog.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There's just 2 things I'd like to talk about. First was the MTA. I'm from the Midwest, and I'm used to the commuter thing. And in Midwest, they don't give you tickets if you don't have your fare on you at the time. They'll just ask for your money right then and there, because it takes a lot of time to go to court and then the jury trial and all this stuff for if you don't have a ticket on you. And in Midwest, it's incorporated as a part of your daily life. Like I could buy a magazine while I'm down and waiting for this train, or coffee and a donut, and over here you can't eat on the train, so it's like not a part of your life. I could stop for dry cleaning. I could stop on all these ways while I'm on my commute, and maybe that could help you out in some economy things and maybe some new jobs. The other thing, you know what I want is when I work downtown on the Midwest, I'd be able to stop at off-track betting parlors, and I was wondering if those could be incorporated, because they're fun on a lunch hour to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zumadog.
On American Top 40, I'm Casey Kasem. And now we're up to our countdown of the biggest fraud, waste, and abuse happening inside downtown City Hall. And coming in at number 1 on the chart is the Glass L Park Neighborhood Council and their infiltration of the board with developers with permits and projects and planning connections here in the city. And also paid staffers who sit on the review commission. It's a complete racket. And I'm going to be talking to Dunn, the 912 Commission, and the federal court. Now, let's talk about the downtown development plans for the city of Los Angeles. Mayor Antonio Villagrosa has decided our only chance is to roll the dice with a double or nothing, spend all the money, suck the CRA fund dry with the Hail Mary pass to create the 5-star luxury accommodation broadcast facility convention center that everyone wants it to be. The only problem is it's a risky investment because you're taking CRA money for something with no demand. There's no public input. Nobody needs a Ritz-Carlton condo with JW Marriott hotels and boutique specialty shops and all types of theaters and facilities. We need real mixed-use affordable housing. If SCAG is indeed making you build all this high density to hit their numbers, then I would suggest doing things that accommodate the community. Real types of amenities. It's called LA Live, y'all, and it's robbing the community blind. They've cut all kinds of deals. We got the Grand Avenue project, and we got LA Live. We got 2 bookend competing facilities that have luxury condos, all the luxury amenities. It's basically $1 billion babysitting service for the people flying in. But CEOs might be able to have their conventions here. Zumadog says you've just priced the city of Los Angeles out of the convention business, and you're doing a double or nothing roll of the dice on a risky plan. Go to Zumadog blog, my new blog, Zumadog blog. I've got the city plans on all this stuff, the fraud report, ZumadogBlog.com on the real estate.
Thank you. Mr. Oscar Johnson. Mr. Johnson.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Oscar Johnson. Proactive at the City of Los Angeles, speaking, in defense of the homeless and the condition of what I see in Los Angeles about racism and politics. That's why Skid Row is looking the way it is, because of our racism and politics. And we need to get together and make a recall of our Chief Branton. He should get recalled. The 400,000 signatures they're trying to get to recall Sheriff Brock. But I think the citizens of Los Angeles should come together and try to recall some of the people that are in charge of us. Maybe we get some did through our city administration. But it seems as though on the positive side, we don't have any connection with our district attorney office, our mayor office, our chief of police, but it seems like the only connection we have with them is corruption and racketeering. And I don't think that is morally right and is morally wrong what's going on in the city of Los Angeles through our city administration department. Because I look around and I see so many stores in Los Angeles, it begin to be a hangout for racketeering and corruption. There's no laws, there's nothing enforced, there's nothing morally being done in the city of Los Angeles, and I can see why the homeless are being treated like they are through the politics and racism. And I would think that we should try to clean up so many of our problems here in America before we go to Iraq and Afghanistan and keep killing innocent peoples over there. I see with the war, 3,500 American soldiers have gotten killed, 650,000 Iranians have got slaughtered on their own homeland. But we just carry this thing of violence and corruption and putting other people in harm's way and don't care what the consequences are. And a lot of cases I see in Los Angeles where we're putting profit before the health, profit over health, whatever that thing's supposed to be. How the environment are down on Skid Row, where the toxins on the street and where they do urinate and defecate and all this stuff flies around in the environment for the and causing air pollution, but no environmental group coming out and speaking anything about it. But seem like y'all got.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate you being here today. That closes our public comment. Mr. Clerk, I think we're going to take item number 33 next. We have one public comment card. Mr. Zumadog.
Yes, this is something very important. A lot of people have been talking about on the radio, news media. It regards Special Order 40. So I thought I would bring it to the attention of people because this stuff's real confusing. It says right here that legislation that would prohibit local regulations such as Special Order 40. What it looks like is that City Council might be concerned that the federal government will be doing things to overturn Special Order 40 according to the federal legislation program. So it says right here, City Council, the mayor, they want to include opposition to any legislation that would prohibit Special Order 40. Okay, so what's happening today? They're going to be voting to strengthen Special Order 40. Now, again, we all know the City Council has a very terrible habit of trying to pass local ordinances on top of federal law. So City Council's basically having a showdown. Hey, federal government, we think you might want to be trying to overturn Special Order 40. We're going to put opposition into the federal plan right now to try to, run interference. But as we know, the federal government, they have a way of getting what they want. And so, like, let's say the infrastructure, for example. We know that the mayor blew the infrastructure money from the federal government because he didn't want to put the toll roads. Point is, they're going to get that money. If they don't do the toll roads, I was at the SCAG meeting, they're going to put gas tax. We're going to raise the money through increasing gas tax. So the bottom line, the federal government's going to get what they want, and then you don't follow it, and then you don't get the money. So what I think will probably happen here, and this is speculation just to consider, because if you're going to stand up to Special Order 40 and say we're not going to do it, then they'll say, okay, great. Well, when it comes time for all this money you want from us for social programs, for employment things, for all the things that are tied into this, well, you're not going to get it. So you're going to have to decide, well, gee, do we cave and let the federal government overturn Special 40, or do we finally take a stand and, not finally take a stand, we are refusing the money like the infrastructure, then you'll have to refuse all the federal money, and that's going to be a lot. So the federal government will be putting the smackdown on this. I'm just predicting. I think you probably have thought it through that way, too. So consider that, y'all. Special Order 40.
Thank you. Mr. Garcetti?
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I first want to thank and introduce a group of students that is here from Belmont Visual Arts and Humanities Small Learning Community. If you guys would stand up, we'd love to give you a round of applause and thank you for being here from the Belmont Leadership Academy. It's wonderful to have you here in Council, and thank you for being a part of it today. This item follows the lead of the National League of Cities, and Dennis Zine is the chair of our Immigration Task Force, the National League of Cities. And there may be people around this horseshoe, and there may be people in the city who have different opinions about Special Order 40, but I think the heart of this matter is about jurisdiction, whether the federal government should take away local control of the ability to mandate what helps us ensure that our communities, we have witnesses who will step forward when they see crime, have people come forward and feel like the police department serves well with them. And this has really come out of the Los Angeles Police Department for many years, and I know the police department is here and available for questions today. But there was an amendment that Norm Coleman of Minnesota introduced, which would have taken away the ability for local government to have control over making those decisions. I feel that we're closer to the immigrant communities. We represent the immigrant communities on this council. We have folks who are immigrants themselves, and the importance of ensuring that people are not scared when they witness a crime, do not live in fear in terms of being able to participate in making our communities safer, that this has been something very strongly that should remain with local government. But regardless of how you feel about Special Order 40, we should maintain that power. And that's something that I hope that we can all be unified around. Certainly when crimes are committed, the way that things are right now in the city of Los Angeles, once somebody is brought in who's a criminal, if their immigration status is relevant, and deportations do happen from our city where we have criminals who are here without documentation. But when it comes to witnesses, when it comes to other people that we need to ensure that we don't have communities that are locked down in fear, this is very important. But outside of that, I think this is something that's better solved at the local level. National League of Cities, in a bipartisan way, has felt that very strongly and adopted that as official testimony. I know that Councilmember Zine recently testified in front of Congress, not just for the city of Los Angeles, but for all of us, to ensure that we have some sensible immigration policies that really get to the heart of that. And so I would ask for your support today. Thank you.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, and thank you for that, those kind words, President Garcetti. There's a misconception in the community. Special Number 40, a lot of people think, ties the hands of the Los Angeles Police Department when it comes to immigration enforcement. And while police officers in the city of Los Angeles have a policy to follow, which has been in place for many years, they still work with Immigration Customs Enforcement. There are still deportations to take place, and those issues affect individuals who are committing crime. Our city attorney came out with a policy recently on gang enforcement to utilize immigration custom enforcement where gang members are involved in criminal activity. So this misconception of the public, which really creates Special Number 40, the police can't enforce immigration laws. Police are restricted from enforcing federal laws. What it simply means in layman's terms is when you're driving down the street, walking down the street, a police officer is not permitted to stop and ask you for your birth certificate or where you were born or your green card. That's what it means. It does not prevent the officer from stopping you for any type of crime, arresting you, and then following that, contacting Immigration Custom Enforcement if need be, and have something taken. People are arrested, 40-some thousand people, or 140-some thousand. Well, the numbers are staggering in Los Angeles annually. Many people are turned over to ICE, and many times they come back. But we have a deputy chief who's here, who's sitting in the audience, who's willing to come up and comment on this. So I think we should hear it from the representative from the Los Angeles Police Department, our newest deputy chief. If you'll come forward from the police perspective and to dispel the myth that Special Number 40 is something evil that ties the hands of police when it comes to them doing their jobs to protect people of Los Angeles.
Good morning. My name is Sergio Diaz. I'm a Deputy Chief with the Los Angeles Police Department, the Commanding Officer of Operations Central Bureau. I've been designated by the Department and the City Attorney as the person most knowledgeable about Special Order 40. And I agree with the comments made by Councilman Zine and Councilman Weiss. In fact, Special Order 40 is a policy adopted by the Los Angeles Police Department in 1979, and essentially it does two things. One is it's a general prohibition of our officers, or against our officers, initiating an investigation with the sole purpose of discovering a person's immigration status. The second thing that Special Order 40 does, and by the way, a special order is a way that we have of changing our policy manual. The second thing that the special order did was to prohibit officers from arresting persons for illegal entry into the country, which is in fact a federal misdemeanor. It is true that we consider that Special Order 40 is very effective in increasing the amount of cooperation and public trust of all our communities, but specifically the immigrant community, specifically minority communities. One of my functions in the police department is to constantly remind the public that, in fact, immigration status is not an issue that we generally pursue as a matter of course. However, there's nothing in the department policy, and specifically in Special Order 40, that prohibits us from investigating immigration issues when appropriate. For example, that usually comes up in the case of alien smuggling investigations. We sometimes are called because there are violations of state law, kidnapping, extortion, weapons violations, sometimes even sexual assaults that occur within the context of people that smuggle in folks from across the border. In investigating those issues, we find out that people have in fact been smuggled in mass, and the appropriate actions that we take are to notify the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We also work with ICE on deportations of criminals who are wanted in other countries. Typically, we get contacted by a consulate of another country. They tell us we're looking for this individual who's a citizen of our country, wanted there. We help us locate them through our fugitive warrant section. We do that. We locate those criminals. If in fact they're in the country illegally, if they're in our country illegally, that simplifies the process of getting them back to their home countries. We have no prohibition from our officers ever speaking to anyone about immigration issues. When it's appropriate to do so, we do so. What Special Order 40 we think does is in a very measured way, it helps us enhance the trust of all our communities, and specifically the immigrant communities, and it keeps our officers from becoming engaged in issues that are not appropriately matters for a municipal law enforcement agency. As to the motion at hand, the Los Angeles Police Department supports the idea that local officers, municipal police departments, should be left to, first of all, to designate what their appropriate missions are in terms of federal law, and that there should be no federal mandate for local officers to become involved in immigration issues. In fact, as Councilman Weiss has said, we cooperate, we follow the law, we cooperate with immigration authorities in that we notify the immigration authorities of all our arrested people who are foreign-born. We transmit automatically, and as a matter of course, copies of or names of foreign-born individuals who are booked into the county booking system. And on occasion, we hear back from immigration that some of those people are requested to be held, and we do hold them per the department's policy until immigration can pick them up. We also participate with the federal authorities from time to time on task forces and other efforts targeting alien criminals. But we strongly believe, and the experience of almost 30 years has convinced us that Special Order 40 is and the policy delineated therein are appropriate ways, and they've been helpful in breaking down the suspicions and lack of cooperation that could exist without such a policy.
And I just want to add that the National League of Cities represents large and small cities from New York to Los Angeles, from northern part of the country to the southern part. There's hundreds of cities and towns that are members of the National League of Cities, and this task force that I was asked to lead last year has representatives of many ethnic groups on the task force from National League of Cities on this particular issue. We've met with the congressional representatives, we've met with White House representatives, and what we put together is a comprehensive pathway to come up with a solution, and we're hopeful that Congress will finally adopt some solution to bring some remedy. But as far as police agencies across the country affiliated with National League of Cities, it's universal that the philosophy that LAPD has, Special Number 40, is the standard throughout the country, and the official recommendation from NLC is to maintain Special Number 40 as it is with the Los Angeles Police Department and other cities across the country. So I thank you, Chief, for being here. Congratulations on your promotion, and hopefully with this measure it'll send a strong message to Congress and to the United States Senate that we want to have a comprehensive plan on how to deal with immigration, but not tread on the grounds of local law enforcement and their responsibility to provide public safety to the communities across America. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Wisar.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Hello, Deputy Chief. This motion presented by Garcetti, Reyes, and Zine makes so much sense at so many levels, and I want to thank the authors of this motion to be at the forefront to address these issues as they come up in Washington, D.C. The issue of local control is important. It's something that this council has often supported, encouraged, and stood by. And encouraging and supporting a better way to address public safety, this perhaps makes a lot of sense to make sure we continue to have Special Order 40. The reasons have been mentioned, and it just seems so clear to me as day, on a bright, sunny day as we have here in Los Angeles, that we want victims and witnesses to come forward and talk to police and not be concerned that they will be deported. If a crime occurs and there's a person nearby that is undocumented, we want them to come forward, testify, give information to police to make sure they are able to conduct their business. So simple and clear. We've got to do everything we can to make sure we protect Special Order 40 so that we could continue to provide and enhance public safety in the city of Los Angeles. So thank you to the authors of this motion. I think it's a way to be ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. And Zine, I know you've been a great advocate for this in your role, so we appreciate all your work you've been doing there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wisar. Mr. Rosendahl, who will be followed by Mr. Parks, Mr. Cardenas, and then Mr. LaBonge.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
I went to an event Saturday in my district where I do this all the time, and it was a group of homeowners on a given street. It's a lovely street, lovely people. There was a father and a son who were immigrants who got their legal status, furious about Rule 40, just called it illegal aliens, and how could you do this kind of thing, and darn it, they went on and on and on. It almost had a contentious atmosphere in the room. Would you explain for those kinds of people who see this as a violation of the federal law why we have 40 and explain it?
Yes, sir. The basic premise of the order and of the policy is that if the police were seen to be agents of immigration, there would be large segments of our local population who would refuse to cooperate with the officers, would refuse to report crimes, identify suspects, be a part of the justice system. So we've endeavored for over 28 years now to convince our public, the community at large, that immigration issues by themselves are not a concern for the police department. I believe that part of the outrage that you've described is based on some misunderstandings about the order and about that policy. In fact, when appropriate, we work with immigration authorities, again, as I mentioned earlier, in targeting criminal gang members who may be deportable, in assisting with the investigation of alien smuggling, human trafficking organizations, and assisting with the arrest and return to their countries of foreigners who are in the country illegally who are wanted by their governments for various criminal offenses. We think that this is a very workable compromise, in fact. Our officers are not unduly constrained from doing their jobs, but we think that the job of immigration is one that is most appropriately performed by the federal government. I'd like to point out that if there's also logistical and resource reasons for policies such as this. If, in fact, our officers were to become involved in immigration matters, essentially every public contact would involve some kind of immigration investigation. We would have to train our entire police department into how do we determine whether someone is in the country legally or not, and then every public contact would involve some aspect of that investigation. Contrary to what some folks may believe, there are persons in the country who are undocumented from all corners of the globe, from Asia, from Africa, from Europe, as well as from Latin America. So we think that the best approach to this is to not become involved in immigration issues except when necessary, and to cooperate with our federal partners in terms of letting them know which of our arrestees are foreign-born, letting them tell us which of those people should be held on immigration warrants, if any, and then complying with those. We go to great lengths to explain to the public that we, in fact, do not refuse to work with any federal partner. In fact, the law wouldn't allow us to do that. We fully cooperate with the immigration authorities, but we do our job, and we expect that they will do theirs.
Have you looked at other cities? You said we've had this in effect for, 28 years? Did I hear you say that?
Yes, sir, since 1979.
What about New York and Miami and some of the other cities that have large undocumented immigrant populations?
As far as we're aware, all of the major cities in the country have either a written or unwritten policy similar to ours. That is, they do not become involved in immigration enforcement as a matter of course. We also understand that there are movements in various ways, both legislatively and through the lawsuits, to change those policies. And Los Angeles, in fact, may be one of the first that's targeted by some segments to force changes in those policies.
Mm-hmm. But it has been working for 28 years.
We think it's been working very well, and our primary challenge is to keep getting the word out to our communities that, in fact, because there are so many recently arrived immigrants that don't understand the delineation of that role. Our challenge is to get the word out to them constantly that this is not an issue that we pursue as a matter of course, and we don't arrest people for illegal entry into the country.
Now, of course, if there's an incident, somebody breaks the law, commits a misdemeanor or a felony, you'll ask them about their status at that point.
What we ask every person that we book, we ask for their place of birth. That's a basic identifier that everyone is asked. In the case of foreign-born individuals, we mark in the computer process, the automated decentralized booking process, we indicate those that are foreign-born. Those lists of foreign-born arrestees are transmitted electronically to Immigration Customs Enforcement, and presumably they check those names and those identifiers against their databases. Occasionally we get a message back from Immigration Customs Enforcement to hold someone because they're wanted, they're deportable, and we honor those holds. We will hold people up to 48 hours without allowing them bail in order to facilitate that process of ICE.
What would you say the percentage of folks behind bars or in the criminal justice system that are undocumented immigrants?
So I don't know. I've read some statistics that indicate they're relatively high in places like Southern California, but I couldn't tell you from a position of knowledge.
Is there a discussion going on with the federal government that aspects of that incarceration of undocumented immigrants, that they'll pay for that? Or how do we deal with the complaint I hear that, they're in our prisons, they should be sent to their home countries, we're paying for them? Is there a discussion about that?
Councilman, I believe there is, but I'm not privy to that discussion. I don't know how it's taking place. I couldn't tell you.
Okay, well, thank you for everything you shared with us. Appreciate it very much.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate your comments on this issue. It's only been around since 1978. And I think what I'm concerned about is on this immigration bill, it appears that there's two issues that different Congress people are attempting to eliminate home rule. One is dealing with the issue of Special Order 40, but also in that same legislation, they're attempting to eliminate the local jurisdictions to use in the sense of property issues in which we deal with how we deal with the issue of day laborers. And so this particular legislation is being moved to cover a variety of issues that impact local control. I think it's so important, and if you could just repeat it for the public again, that if you have an investigation that deals with a criminal act and immigration issues come into the police department's knowledge, how are those issues handled?
Yes, sir. Typically, we're talking about issues of human trafficking, alien smuggling. Very often, the local police department gets involved because someone will call, say, there appear to be 60 people living in a two-bedroom home in a residential community. There's neighbors report suspicious activity. We follow up on that, and on occasion, we find out that we have homes in our communities that are being used as safe houses, as transit points in that alien smuggling operation. We necessarily become involved in those investigations because typically what we find is people are being held against their will, folks are being held at gunpoint. On occasion there are rape and other sexual violations alleged. There's extortion. People are being held until their relatives pay a certain amount of money. Those are all violations of state law which we appropriately and necessarily must investigate. In investigating those, we discover the context. We have to ask, how is it that 60 people came to be in this two-bedroom home, for example, and we find out that these folks were recently transported across the national border illegally. In those cases, we have an obligation, both moral and legal, to notify our federal partners in the Immigration Customs Enforcement. They typically will take custody of the victims, the people that have been transported. They work with our detectives. We ask, for example, that people be given special visas that permit folks to remain in the country to cooperate with the criminal justice process. But again, in that case, it's completely appropriate for us to notify immigration authorities, and we do so, and we don't find that there's anything in the department policy, either in Special Order 40 or anyplace else, that would inhibit us to do the right thing to notify the federal authorities.
If you compare that with just a stop of a person to ask them about their immigration status, what benefit does that serve for the police department?
It would serve no benefit for us to ask folks what their immigration status is. In fact, Special Order 40, as we said earlier, does two things. And the first thing that it does is strictly prohibit officers from initiating an investigation with the purpose of discovering someone's immigrant status. And again, that in the preamble, in the text of Special Order 40, when it was published almost 30 years ago, we explained that had to do, and that policy was developed in order to gain and regain and maintain the confidence of all segments of the public. We think that that's it's been a very effective policy. We think that, in fact, initiating a an immigration investigation on a traffic stop or some other contact would not be helpful, probably would not meet, in most cases, the requirements of probable cause and reasonable suspicion, and it would cause concern, distrust, lack of cooperation with many of our communities.
If you have a person that's a victim of a crime, any crime, what we could think of, what benefit would it be to the police department to inquire of their immigration status to make out a crime report?
There would be very few cases that I can envision that the victim's immigration status would be an issue or anything of concern to us. It may, on some rare occasion, be an issue in terms of discovering what their availability for court would be. For example, if they were here as a tourist or on a student visa, but that would be a very remote chance. What I'm sure it would do in most cases, though, is it would introduce a degree of suspicion and resentment that would, in many cases, ensure that the victim would be less inclined to cooperate with the prosecution than if we had not breached that subject.
And Chief, you've been in the job how long?
30 years, sir.
30 years. And so this has been in place for your entire career. Have you seen Special Order 40 impair the department's ability to make arrests?
I have not. In fact, we recently talked to some plaintiffs who were trying to force the issue of a change in the city's policy. And as I pointed out then, I was on the police department before the implementation of the special order, and most of my career we've been under this policy. I'm not aware, did not detect any hue and cry. When the policy was implemented, there was not any resentment from officers as to their ability to do their job. And in the years succeeding it, there has not been any such outcry that officers are prohibited from doing their jobs, or somehow that it interferes or is an obstacle with doing their job. On occasion, there have been issues that have required some clarification. For example, some officers have questioned whether, if they see a person on the street that they know has been deported as an undesirable alien, as a criminal alien, can they approach that person and investigate that? And what we have reported back to the officers is, yes, you can. The way that we would prefer that you do that is to involve a supervisor. We want to make sure that our officers are not subject to complaints that they are inappropriately causing the deportation, for example, of a citizen complainant or a witness against them. So we want them to involve the rest of the department, namely a supervisor, but we think that kind of investigation of a criminal alien is completely legitimate and is not anything that is prohibited by the special order.
Okay. And then when the special order first came out, 78, 79, it was a specific requirement if there was a arrest or for a high-grade misdemeanor or felony that you had to make a phone call. But subsequent to that, there is now an electronic mechanism, and that expansion serves what purpose?
That's correct, sir. Initially, in the special order, there was a procedural requirement that when an alien was arrested or a foreign-born person was arrested, the arresting officer would make a phone call to the detective desk, and the detective desk then would generate a list that would go to the immigration authorities. Subsequent to that, technology has really has precluded that requirement. In fact, the way we handle that now is when a person is booked in, we ask for their place of birth. If the place of birth is outside the United States, we mark it with an X and then list what that place of birth is. And that generates, through the county's decentralized automated booking information system, that generates a list of people that goes to immigration authorities. In turn, we get back, we have a rule in the department. It was initially 24 hours, now it's 48 hours. We have 48 hours during which we will hold anyone that the immigration authorities ask us to hold. So during that time, we don't release them, we don't let them out on bail, and we hold them in case immigration wants us to do that.
Okay. And also, if an officer is making an investigation, they run somebody through the normal criminal information, and something comes back on a warrant, there's no limitation in holding them or basically going through the normal procedures.
That is correct, sir. If the federal government has placed a warrant on someone, including a deportation order, we will arrest that person. There's nothing in Special Order 40 or any other part of the police department's manual or any rule that would inhibit an officer from arresting such a person and holding them for that order.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I would, colleagues, wholeheartedly believe we should endorse this along with what we've done in the past about the issue of this immigration bill, including a violation of home rule on a couple of issues, one dealing with land use, this one dealing with how this city has for 30 years chose to address the issue of investigating crime in the city of LA or making crime reports. But I think it's the larger issue is the home rule in which we should be able as a city to determine what process we use. And I think it's clear from the chief's comments here today, there are no limitations on how a police officer conducts themselves, and it's been a long-standing rule that you just do not initiate an investigation merely to determine status. That is the only limitation. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Mr. Cardenas.
Good morning. Thank you for answering our questions on behalf of ourselves and for the public. I'd like to remind the people watching that you heard Councilmember Zine, 30-plus years as an officer here, right here in the city of Los Angeles, former police chief, and decades of experience here with the city of Los Angeles with now Councilmember Bernard Parks. They both agree that Special Order 40 has a proper place and actually enhances our police department's ability to do their job. It's important for people to understand that if they don't like the fact that there are people in this country without documentation walking around the streets of their neighborhood, that it is up to the federal government and those immigration officials to enforce those laws. The thing that I think people forget is when you have an officer who's spending time looking for people and asking them what their immigration status is, they are not able to walk around and look for the criminals on their list that just broke into a house last night or have been breaking into cars in that neighborhood. You can't have it both ways. Is that correct? That time and energy is spent elsewhere if we act like immigration officials, our local law enforcement.
Yes, sir, absolutely. In addition to the reasons of public trust, we also understand that this is an issue of resource allocation, that any time that our officers would be involved in immigration matters, it is time that they're not involved in their primary duties, which is the enforcement of state and local laws.
Okay. Now, it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if we were to start acting like local immigration officials here with our police department, is there any indication whatsoever that the federal government is going to send immigration officials to come help us with our street crime issues?
I'm not aware of any such proposal or agreement on the part of the federal government. We are currently and have traditionally been involved in task forces and different matters with agents of the FBI, the DEA, the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and immigration authorities. And we expect that those will continue as usual, but I don't expect any I have no reason to believe that there would be any increase in those in that participation if we agreed to become immigration agents.
Well, the fact of the matter is federal immigration officials are not sworn officers of the city of Los Angeles. And although they can do their work in the city of Los Angeles, they are not, it's not one and the same. They do not patrol our streets to, if there's a burglary or what have you, they do not have the direct responsibility. They are expecting that the LAPD would be out there doing that, etc. So the bottom line is, for those people in the city of Los Angeles, if you think that our law enforcement needs to wear two badges and be immigration officers and at the same time try to be LA Police Department officers, you're kidding yourself into thinking that you're going to have safer streets. What you're going to have is a depletion of resources, and you're not going to have those police officers being able to address the issues that they're here to address, which is our local laws and our local street crimes, etc., to protect every single one of us. One of the things I want to point out as well, for those people watching, if you think that it's the City Council of today that enacted Special Order 40, think again, because it was a city council in 1979, which I wouldn't necessarily call a very out there liberal city council, nor would I call Daryl Gates, the then police chief, a liberal police chief either. So when you get right down to it, Special Order 40 was put in place to protect the public of the city of Los Angeles and to put order to the policing within the city of Los Angeles, and also to delineate whose responsibility it is to enforce immigration laws and whose responsibility it is to protect the streets and the people in the city of Los Angeles. Two very different things. If you think you're going to have it both ways, you're kidding yourself. When I was in the state legislature, I was very surprised to see Republican elected sheriffs in different parts of the state of California, by no means conservative individuals, who were in favor of articles like Special Order 40 within their jurisdiction so that they can make sure that their sheriff officers police their streets and do their job and not act like immigration officers. So it's about public safety. It's not about how you feel about immigrants. It's about public safety, and Special Order 40 is in its right place in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you. Mr. LaBonge.
Thank you. Sir. Mr. Rice, to support this effort, I have two questions. One, what is Special Order 39?
I wouldn't know that, sir.
What is Special Order 41?
I don't know that.
Special Order 1?
Each year there's a new special order, a new list of special orders. It just so happens we continue to call this particular policy by its original name, but each year the department manual is amended in a number of ways with special orders that are numbered sequentially. There's a new Special Order 40 from last year and the year before and so forth.
But this is the Special Order 78 or 79?
79, yes, sir.
79.
It's since become part of the department manual.
Well, why don't we change the name that is more reflective of its importance of helping people in policing this city? Because I think every year there's an argument about Special Order 40. And since there's been 40 more, almost 40 more, 28 more special orders of a special order and such, why don't we find a name that, reflects the importance of this? So if you could consult with your chief and your commission, and if there's anything I need to do because I know we sometimes do change, not to fool anybody, but to reflect the importance of something.
Well, that's correct, sir. And in fact, the policy does have a name in all of our chapters of the policy manual. They have a title, and it escapes me what this.
That's all right. I don't know every. Other than the city was founded in 1781, I don't know anything much more than that. But what I would say, Chief, if you could look at that and see, and I'll talk to your members and ask that maybe we have a discussion to see what would be rather reflective, because this becomes an issue not just in Los Angeles and our communities, but international talk show hosts talk about this. And they've never even understood the importance of what this is for a person walking down 6th Street near Vermont Avenue and needs help from the police department. And do they have to think in their mind, are they going to get help from the police department? This order that was issued in 1979 by then Chief of Police Daryl Gates reflects the importance of how the police department should operate, correct?
Yes, sir. And I wanted to emphasize, I think we've talked a little bit about this at the edges, but I want to emphasize the importance is the following. If, in fact, immigrant communities, and not just the Hispanic community, but, for example, in Asian communities, the same thing happens. If people who recently arrived in the United States perceive that the police department, that their local officers are their enemies, that, in fact, they will enforce immigration laws against them, what we've effectively done is to empower the criminals within those communities to operate with impunity, because no one will denounce them, no one will report them, no one will participate in the criminal justice process. As it stands, one of our big challenges is convincing people that the right thing to do, in fact, is to cooperate with the criminal justice process. It happens because of the fears of gang reprisals, for example, but this would be just one more very powerful thing that would work against the effect of law and order. If our communities did not trust the police, if they believed that by contacting the police they were going to be questioned about their immigration status, that they were going to be referred to immigration, people would shut down and simply not report things, and we would empower criminals within those communities to continue to do their work with impunity.
Right. Well, I thank you, Chief, for that, and I congratulate you on your promotion.
Thank you, sir.
Look for your service. I remember one time I was driving west on 7th, coming up to Alvarado. The doors of Firehouse 11 were wide open, and a woman then ran into the station, and I stopped, and she wanted to report a fire. And I thought, why would she not call? Well, wherever she had come from in this big, beautiful world of ours, she always would run to the firehouse. And the fire wasn't even from where she ran from, it was from where she lived, because her neighbor called her and told her. And it was an interesting dichotomy of how sometimes with people who come from all over the world to this great city of Los Angeles needs to know that everyone who works for the city is trying to do what's best for all people. And this effort, which I'm going to ask Savak to draft a motion to ask that the police department consider this or whatever is important, to have names of laws that not be hot button issues but be factual descriptions of what they are. Maybe look at some of these to help soften the tension that sometimes people say when you say Special Order 40.
Yes, sir, and I would just point out that some of this is driven by the media. In fact, they refer to the Special Order 40. It's not unlike when we talk about Prop 13.
Right.
Even though there have been many more Prop 13s, that's the one that's identified within the public's mind.
All right, well, thank you, Chief. And Madam President, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Zine, followed by Mr. Parks.
I just wanted to say for Mr. Labange, Special Order number 39 says if you have any questions, go to number 40, and 41 says refer to number 40. So that's your answer to 39 and 41. So that's the catch-all. I just wanted to add, in addition to this whole controversy, it keeps on coming up for the last 30 years on Special Number 40, which is now part of the department policy, which is in the department manual. The components that National League of Cities is promoting is employer verification, is stronger border protection, and for a process, individuals who are here, not amnesty, but a legal process, how they become legal within the United States. So there's components, but the issue that keeps coming up is always, why don't the police enforce, why don't the police enforce? And if they did go out and enforce, if they did go out and stop people on the street and say, what's your status? Well, I'm here illegally. The LAPD would take that individual, turn them over to ICE. ICE would deport them, and then they come back. So it doesn't really solve a problem. I think people are short-sighted when they think that utilizing the LAPD to enforce that, it's going to solve a problem. It's not going to solve the problem. What we need to do, as it's been already stated, is the federal government to do their job, and the components are, once again, border protection, employer verification when someone goes to apply for a job, and then to capture the 12 to 20 million people who are allegedly here illegally, to capture them into the system and find a process to bring them under the fold without amnesty. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion taking place.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Parks.
I'd just like to clarify, and I think the Chief did it well, is that for everyone to know, Special Order 40 is just the title once it's published, and it's an interim way to update the manual. Once it goes into the manual, which has been in there since 1978, the department never refers to it as a special order anymore. It's the public who identifies it as Special Order 40 because that's the only tag that they can link to it. So it's in the manual. It's under a chapter in the manual. It's under a section in the manual. It doesn't carry that label anymore because it's an interim way of updating the manual. And so it's just a matter of that it's already been retitled. You cannot find the definition of, in the sense of the designation Special Order 40 in the manual because it's listed already in the section it deserves to be in, and you can go back and reference our impact or how we deal with immigration issues, but it is not under that label. And so that special order is just an easy reference for the public.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. We have one other public speaker cards that came forward. Greg Simmons, if you'd like to come forward.
Council members, my name is Greg Simons, and I'm the Immigration Citizenship Project Director of CHIRLA, which is the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. And I just want to add that Chirla is a longtime supporter of Special Order 40 and the protection it offers our city's residents regardless of immigration status. In line with our longtime support of Special Order 40, we urge the City Council to support this resolution that would demonstrate the city's support for a policy that is being threatened in other political arenas. And I want to say that I've worked with Chirla for about the last 10 years, and I've worked in immigrant rights for about almost 20. But in every community forum with the immigrant community and the city that I've ever attended, Special Order 40 is always an issue. The public continually asks the city and the police department to reiterate their support of Special Order 40. And it behooves the City Council to reiterate that support and also to reassure the public that Special Order 40 will be continued to be supported within the City Council and throughout the city. Also, any changes, we face a great time right now in our city's, in our country's history. Right now, we're going through an immigration process that will be relived again, I'm sure, sometime down in the future. But right now, we have a time where we can say to the federal government that this Special Order 40 is within the jurisdiction of the city, and it must be protected, especially when excesses of the federal government are going to come down upon the immigrant community. And so I just want to ask the City Council to reiterate its support for Special Order 40, but also to exercise its jurisdiction in protection of immigrants who are residents of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Closes our public comment. I'm sorry, there's one other card I've been given. Oscar Johnson. Mr. Johnson here? If not, we'll close the public comment on that. And that's the end of the speaker queue for council. So let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes, 1 no.
That is approved. Send that forthwith without objection, please. Next item.
Mr. President, I believe there was a request to take item 32 out of order.
Okay. Item 32 requested. Is there any objection to that? We do have cards. Would you like to take those first, Mr. Parks?
Yes.
Okay. On item number 32, Latasha White. Oh, she's okay. Why don't you go ahead and introduce the
Thank you very much. Let me ask the detective late to come up, and also I'm going to try this. Detective Stacy Simkowiak. Something. But Detective Stacy and also Detective Late is here. Also, the mother of our victim, Latasha White. We'd like to ask Detective Late to give us an overview of what the case is about. Or Detective Stacy will handle it, and then we'll ask the mother to make a personal plea. And give us the correct.
Great. Thank you. First, we'd like to thank all of you for allowing us the opportunity to speak and make our request for this reward this morning. My name is Detective Stacy Simkowiak. I'm joined up here by my partner, Detective Robert Late, Latasha White, and Nazian. They are mother and brother of our murder victim, Spurgeon McClendon. Spurgeon McClendon was a 19-year-old young man who was a promising student and collegiate athlete. And on February 25th of this year, at about 2 in the morning, he was murdered in the 1400 block of 28th Street in Los Angeles. He was in that area along with a friend. They were in his vehicle, a burgundy Cadillac, older model, with unknown male suspects, confronted them, fired numerous shots, striking Spurgeon McClendon, ultimately resulting in his death. At this time, my partner and I have exhausted all of our investigative resources along with all of our investigative leads. Mrs. White has been relentless in her assistance in providing us names of associates and friends of Spurgeon's that may be able to provide information. And we have reason to believe that due to the proximity of this crime to a very popular nightclub in the area on Vermont Avenue and 29th Street, along with the time that this occurred, that we have numerous pedestrians in the area, vehicles in the area that may have witnessed this incident. We're hoping that this reward can be approved and also that it will help to encourage these witnesses to come forward and help us to provide Mrs. White and her family and Spurgeon with some justice in this case. Mrs. White.
Good morning. I would just like to say that when a parent loses a child, it has a tremendous impact forever. And I would just like to say to the public, if anyone has any information on the person or persons responsible for the murder of my son, Spurgeon, that they would come forth or contact Detectives Lake and Detective Simkoyak. My youngest son, Nazian, has been greatly impacted as well. And also, I'd like to ask the council if you would please approve the reward. It would be greatly appreciated on behalf of the McClendon family. Thank you.
Coming in, I would just, for the public awareness, we have a 19-year-old victim that's a victim of a homicide on February 28th, 07 in the vicinity of West 28th and Vermont. Any information, we'd appreciate it to be directed to 77th Homicide at 213-485-1383. Thank you very much for coming. And I'd ask for an aye vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks, and thank you very much, the detectives, and for our victim's mother for being here. With that, let's open up the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
As approved, we'll send that forthwith without objection. We can reconsider items 9 and 10. We do have enough members for the ordinances. Please open the roll in reconsideration. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Thank you. Go back to the items called special, please.
Item 1 was called special for cards from the public.
Okay. Item number 1 is before us. I'd like to invite Jack Kuramoto forward. After Mr. Kuramoto will be Wilson Liu, and after that will be Francis Hashimoto. Good morning.
Hi. I'm a fourth-generation Little Tokyo business owner. My family's had businesses in the area for nearly 100 years now. I run a consulting firm and federal government contractor. This program, I think, started about 3 years ago, and honestly, from where I am on the upper floors, I really haven't seen any change or any benefit from the Business Improvement District, but I have to pay the same fee as everybody else, including the ground floor businesses that probably do benefit, because I can see that the restaurants and the retail merchants, they probably get a direct benefit from this program, but I don't, being on the fourth floor, I can't even see it out the window. I don't see any change or benefit from this program, and what I would like to ask is that we receive a lower assessment for businesses that are non-retail on upper floors, something similar to the assessment that is paid by nonprofit organizations. I think that scale's a little more fair and a little more in line with the kind of services that we receive from this program. And part of the cost of this hurts my competitiveness, because as a consulting firm, it hits directly against my overhead rate, because that's critical under contracting. And if this kind of thing continues, I'm going to have to vote with my feet and leave the city.
Thank you. Wilson Liu is next.
Good morning. My name is Wilson Liu. I'm here representing myself as a business owner as well as a property owner for over 30 years in Little Tokyo, as well as being co-chair of the Little Tokyo Business Improvement District. 3 years ago, we started this program with a very, very small budget. And a good bulk of our expenses went into the securities. Now, finishing off the third year and going into our fourth year, we see a very positive improvement in our community, and we wish for it to continue into its fourth year operations, and I am here to lend my support for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Francis Hashimoto.
I also have a business in Little Tokyo. My family will be
celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2010. We appreciate the fact that the City Council has approved the BID. This is going to be our 4th year, and if you do walk, Little Tokyo is so close to City Hall, but if you walk into Little Tokyo, you can see the difference. Our BID is a small assessment-based BID, but if you go through the streets, you could see the differences, how clean it's gotten, and how much difference it makes with all the tenants and the businesses that are in that area. We ask that you support the approval of the BID, and at this time I'd really like to thank our councilwoman who has been out there and has seen the improvements, but we thank all of you and ask for your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hashimoto. And with that, let's hear from that council member, Jan Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very quick. This business improvement district has transformed the area for the better. It has led to the increase in people patronizing the businesses in the area, both day and night. Now it's very busy at nighttime as well. It has already shown a strong performance and has brought a great deal of uplift to the economic development of the community, and I would like to ask for a unanimous vote today. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Perry. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 2 is called special for cards from the public.
All right, we have one speaker card. Judith Blahnik, if you'd like to come forward. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, council members. I'm Judith Blahnik. I'm representing the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce and the San Pedro Business Improvement District. Camilla Townsend, CEO, and Eric Eisenberg, chairman of the bid. I'm here to thank the council for your past support of our bid efforts. I'm here to report that crime is down and business is up in downtown San Pedro. It's cleaner, it's safer. We are attracting more and more people there every day. It's a thriving urban setting. Not only have we spent your money wisely, our money wisely that you administer for us, but we are making creative relationships and close relationship with our councilwoman, Janice Hahn, and the CRA to work for a better downtown San Pedro. And it's working. Please come visit us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from Ms. Hahn.
Down here today to all the way from San Pedro to voice your opinion on this. And it's true, everything you said is true, and it's always an opportunity to highlight another downtown in Los Angeles. We have a lot of downtowns in all of our council districts, but downtown San Pedro is certainly thriving. We have about 1,300 units of housing being built in downtown San Pedro. We've got new business interests coming into downtown San Pedro. We have a thriving artists community in downtown San Pedro. So things are really doing well. I'm looking in the audience at Ken Melendez, who's also here, who's been a big supporter of the Wilmington bid. And also our downtown in Wilmington is thriving. It's becoming more beautiful. And ultimately, crime is down, and that's what we want. So the bid is a good thing, and really want to thank all those who work so hard. We approve those things down here on the City Council, but it's really those of you who are out there on a day-to-day basis taking what we do, as you said, and spending the money wisely and really making an improvement in people's quality of life. So thank you. Thank you all
Ms.
for
Hahn.
always supporting it.
Thank you very much. And with that, let's go ahead and open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 15 was called special by Councilmember Rosendahl.
All right. Recognize Ms. Gruhl on item number 15. From Mr. Rosendahl.
But no, I want you to first, but I just want to embarrass one of my staff members whose birthday is today, Jennifer Cohen. So she had to leave because she was going to lunch for her birthday. So I just thought I'd embarrass her in front of everyone. So happy birthday, Jennifer. Mr. Rosendahl, it's all yours.
Well, I don't think she's embarrassed. We're all blessed she was born, and she's part of our world here. She is smiling nicely, though. This is just to emphasize to our viewers, our people caught in gridlock every day, like I was this morning. It took almost an hour to get here from the west side. And this is to accelerate $2 billion from Proposition 1B that we, the people, voted on. Obviously, we need our transportation, mass transit infrastructure. And this just accelerates spending that money so we can get beyond our gridlock and create the necessary transportation infrastructure we need. So obviously, we're basically saying as a city of Los Angeles, let's spend that money now. We need it to be spent now. So obviously, I want an aye vote on that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. With that, we'll go ahead and open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 16 was called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Which one?
Ms. Hahn, I think it was for Mr. Zine that you stood up. Mr. Zine.
We can both
We're
talk.
both on
We'll
this.
both talk. You want to talk first?
I'll just say that we have a representative from the city attorney's office, Mr. Veronikar, and there's another deputy city attorney regarding this particular measure, which is going to enhance the sanctions against gang members who are involved in criminal activity. And Marty, maybe you can come forward and give a brief explanation to the council. Marty's going to send up the other man, put him on the hot seat. It's positive legislation. It, again, gives the city attorney more authority to do other activities when it comes to sentencing and recouping damages from gang members who are involved in criminal activity. So if you gentlemen can go into a little detail on this, please.
Very good. Thank you, honorable council members. My name is Marty Veronikar. I'm the supervising attorney for the Gang Prosecution Prevention Section. I'll give you a quick rundown of the bills that we've sponsored this year in the legislation to try to impact both gang crime and provide a measure of public safety to our citizens. The first one would allow both city attorneys and district attorneys to engage in damage actions against gangs who are currently under injunction in an attempt to recover money damages and return those damages to the communities that were impacted. Currently, the law only allowed the Attorney General's office to maintain such damage actions. In the time that provision's been on the books, that action was not taken up by the Attorney General's office, and we felt that by allowing local prosecutors, both in our county and other counties, to do this, we would have a better chance, since we understood our local gang situation much better, that we would understand how to do this. Currently, Mike, as I recall, this bill is out of the Senate.
Yeah, the bill passed successfully out of the Senate. Actually, all of these, each piece of legislation has passed unanimously out of its original House of Origin and is now under the second House.
We've also sponsored a bill to crack down on adults who cause or encourage gang membership. Recruiting under the law is already a crime, but it's a felony matter. And we've found it to be very, very difficult to prove up the actual recruiting. Under the encouragement action, we would have the opportunity to charge that as a contributing to a delinquency of a minor. And if those individuals needed services about dealing with kids, then they would be eligible for diversion. We've also targeted the illegal weapons and illegal weapons possession that would allow us to evict individuals for nuisance actions where a landlord refused or was unable to move forward on the evictions. We're going to also crack down on those gang members who commit hate crimes by including hate crimes as a predicate offense so that we can prove up that the gang engages in this type of activity. As a matter of fact, the County Human Relations Commission just issued a report last week that showed the increase of hate crimes by gang members. We feel that this provision would allow us to then subject those individuals to both gang crime enhancements and hate crime enhancements. So generally, and then the last item was the forfeiture by wrongdoing section. And basically, that's an evidentiary provision that would allow us to, in both domestic violence cases and gang cases, where the defendant has intimidated the witness and made sure that that witness is not going to testify, that we would be able to use those hearsay statements in our criminal cases. That, in general, is a summary of our entire package.
Wonderful. And you say it passed unanimous? That's very unusual.
It is very unusual. Everything except for one bill did receive one vote against it, but everything else passed unanimously.
Excellent. Good work on that. So I would ask, unless my colleague Janice Hahn has any comments on this, that we move this forward.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. I am standing to support this idea that we tell our folks up in Sacramento that we want to support this package of anti-gang bills. And I'm supporting this because, as you know, colleagues, I'm pushing something in the city of Los Angeles which will get us a dedicated revenue stream to go towards prevention, intervention, and after-school programs, because I really believe we need to long-term attack gang violence on the front end, which we've never done in a coordinated, strategic way in the city of Los Angeles. However, I think a very strong prevention program, that means keeping kids from joining gangs in the first place. That's what that means. And I think a better way to fund that is going to make a difference. But coupled with these anti-gang bills, I think then we have a great package here in the city of Los Angeles. And this does everything from allowing us to sue, these gangs for damages that were caused. And I like the idea that this money could actually go back to the community that was most damaged by the infiltration of these vicious gangs. I like the idea that SB 844 creates safe school zones where penalties will be increased, sort of like a traffic construction zone. If you have a traffic fine in those zones, your penalties and fines are increased. That's great to say that a school would be a safe zone, a gang-free zone, so that if we got crimes committed in those areas, the penalties are stiffer and the fines are more. I like that idea. I also like AB 1033. This makes it a misdemeanor to recruit a kid into a gang. And it's amazing that hasn't happened before. One of the things that is most horrifying to me, and it should be most horrifying to all of us, is that these gang members are recruiting our kids to join their gangs. And they're recruiting them in 4th grade, in 5th grade. Our city attorney tells us a horrifying story of Markham Middle School, which is in my council district, where when these 6th grade students go to Markham, they're actually given a choice of which gang to join. It's almost like rush week at a university of what sorority to join. And they're given that choice based on, you want to be safe walking to and from school? Then join one of these gangs and we'll make sure that you're safe. That's horrible. That's tragic. I think that is a concept that most people in Los Angeles can't comprehend. But I love the fact that one of these bills finally makes it a misdemeanor to do that. So I'm supportive of these. I think with strong anti-gang bills that give our city attorney and our district attorney a few more tools to crack down on gangs is good. But colleagues, believe me, without it being coupled with a very strong prevention program in the city of Los Angeles, we probably won't see an end to gang violence in our lifetime. So both these attacks are good, but we need them both. So I'm very supportive of these 4 bills as a way to really crack down on violent gang members.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Cardenas, you're our next speaker.
Thank you very much. I agree with Ms. Hahn that these are good measures that we need to support, and we need to show Los Angeles support for these various pieces of legislation. But unfortunately, these pieces of legislation seem to focus almost exclusively on what are we doing with these people when they've already committed a crime. And what we're going to do and what we need to do is when somebody commits a crime, we do need to commit ourselves to properly investigating that crime, prosecuting that crime, and then putting that criminal where they belong. And when we put them in prison, unfortunately, we are spending upwards of $40,000 per adult when we put somebody in prison in the state of California. And we're also spending over $90,000 a year when we incarcerate a youngster, a juvenile, in our juvenile system. But when you look at what Ms. Hahn was talking about, prevention programs can cost on average in the state of California about $1,200 to $1,300, and that's a fact. So if we can get to our young people and also support legislation that is on the preventative and intervention end, I think therein lies the entire package that the taxpayers, the voters, the citizens and constituents of Los Angeles should get behind. So with that, I want to say thank you for bringing these forward, and very soon I'm going to bring a motion forward. Hopefully we can get the City Attorney's Office to support them as well. There is legislation in the state legislature today that also addresses the prevention and intervention, and hopefully even some legislation that has to do by Senator, former Council President Alex Padilla, who's now a state senator, who has legislation to double the amount of Schiff Cardenas money coming down to local governments, both for the aggressive side, $121 million more for police officers and law enforcement and our prosecutors, and $121 million exclusively for intervention and prevention. And I think with that, we can finally curtail the crime on the front end and on the back end, and on top of that, we can actually hopefully see a reduction in the over $6 billion a year that we are spending in state tax dollars in incarcerating young men and women, older men and women in the state of California. So with that, this is a responsible legislation. It's addressing half the apple. Now, hopefully soon we can get the same amount of support for addressing the other half of the apple, which is the least expensive part of the apple and the preventative end of the apple. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. There are no further speakers. Oh, I'm sorry. Surprise, Mr. LaBonge.
I say, in this city, in my time, there were sports teams, there were bands, there were drill teams, and there were full activities for young people. And when they stopped, other things happened. So I greatly support this because I think it's important to have alternatives for young people. I had, when I grew up in this city, born in '53, raised in the '60s. Got my driver's license in '69. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaBonge. There are no further speakers in the queue. So, Madam Clerk, or Mr. Clerk, would you please open the roll? Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next item.
Item 17 was called special by Councilmember Rosendahl.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Unfortunately, our governor is trying to balance the budget on the backs of our mass transit system. Bad news, Governor. Think twice about it. You're in gridlock too here in Southern California. What he wants to do is to balance the budget, take money from the public trust account and Proposition 1B to balance the state budget. You know, when you do that, you don't give the faith back to the people. When the people went for the gas tax, It was for the very purpose of building mass transit. And frankly, leadership in this state needs to take a hard look at our massive infrastructure needs in Southern California for mass transit. We actually need to consider another gasoline tax. We need to consider some bonds. We need to get the federal government from fighting in wars and put that billions into our transportation infrastructure. So, Governor, no. We have too much gridlock here. Use the money for what we, the people, voted for it to be used for mass transit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. And no further speakers. Oh, Ms. Gruhl, you didn't press your button. I'm sorry. Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Rosendahl, for calling these special, both of these items and item 15, which you talked about before. And really, it's about accountability. It's about the fact that what we had put to the voters, not only 1B, but Proposition 42, where the voters went in and pressed their button or put their ink stamp, whatever it was they used to vote, or their absentee ballot, and said, I want to see more transportation projects, and I want to see the money spent in that way. And so both of these items, item 15, which we talked about, and item 17, is to ensure that not only is the money spent on transportation projects, but similarly that it is fair share. And we all stood here in Los Angeles and up in Sacramento together to say we want our fair share. We have some of the biggest traffic challenges here in this region, and therefore the dollars associated with that should be focused on those traffic problems that are created here, and oftentimes created by things that happen outside the city of Los Angeles, and we bear the brunt. And so we wanted to go on record on this motion and to protect that transportation funding, say once again that it's critical for those dollars to come here to Los Angeles and for projects that are going to help relieve some of our traffic congestion. So thank you again, Ms. Rosendahl, for letting us tell the public about the importance of letting our legislators know and the governor know we want to keep the money for the purposes they voted for to put it on the ballot. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. No further speakers in the queue on this item. Mr. Clerk, if you would please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item.
Item 19 was called special by Councilmember Rosendahl.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, this is so people realize that sometimes we have things on consent and they don't even know what we're voting on. This is another one that the public needs to know why we're voting on this. This is a motion I put in on April 18th that actually authorizes the DOT department, that is the Department of Transportation, to expend an amount not to exceed $250,000 from an account that I have called the Coastal Transportation Corridor Specific Plan Account, Fund 447. This money's sitting there, and I pulled $250,000 out of it so that we could do the following. This is called the Livable Boulevards motion. In our district, we have some great boulevards. We need to focus on them, and we're going to start with Venice Boulevard. That $250,000 will help us link transportation and planning. They should be linked at the hip. You know, anything we do in planning should have a transportation component. Anything we do in transportation should have a planning component. We are joined at the hip with those two issues. This motion allows the Department of Transportation and the planning departments to work together to design a new model for West Los Angeles boulevards. We need to put in place the mass transit before we allow the higher density housing and mixed use to be built. You put the horse before the cart. You know, you don't put the cart first. You need to build this. If Santa Monica and LA City had sat down and talked about this in the 80s, Santa Monica wouldn't have gotten away with all that business in their community without working on housing and transportation infrastructure. My district is clogged because people are coming to it to go to work, but there's no housing, there's no transportation. We're suffering. So this helps us plan together. We need to put in place this mass transit before we do anything else. One of the first boulevards I want to address is my Venice Boulevard. One day, light rail will run down Venice Boulevard to the beach, and along the boulevard will be affordable housing on top of ground floor retail stores. After we finish with Venice, we'll expand this program to Santa Monica Boulevard, Lincoln Boulevard, and Olympic Boulevard. And all my friends in Santa Monica who like that Expo line go into their city. Eventually, I want a sprig coming off of that down Venice Boulevard. We have 1 million people coming to our beaches in the summer, and that boulevard Boulevard is perfect for mass transit. I would like your aye vote on this. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Labange.
Mr. Rosendahl, is it? When did it become your Venice Boulevard there on that? I want to know there. Because Venice runs from the heart of the city all the way out. But I would want to tell you this. One of the challenges that we have, and you mentioned the city of Santa Monica, but all the municipalities, all the 87 other cities in the county, due to the restructuring of tax of property in 1978, caused cities to build up their commerce and their industries to get revenue. And Santa Monica is an absolute prime example. And I'm absolutely amazed when I travel to West Los Angeles in the afternoon to see the inbound traffic coming from Santa Monica to the central part of the city as it relates to its development of commerce and other things. And I'm happy for Santa Monica, but we haven't addressed the transportation needs of that corridor. And I stand to support you as you support the issue of the extension of the Wilshire Boulevard subway, as you support the issues of the Green Line extension into the airport. And you know what, Mr. Rosendahl? I'd like to see the Green Line go to the Dockweiler Beach, because everybody wants to go to the beach in Los Angeles, and why not get people to the beach as well and help that out as well as we look to the future. Madam Chair, I rise to support a council member of the 11th District. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Rosendahl for the second time.
Well, just want to thank you, Mr. Labange, for your comments there. And indeed, we need the Green Line into LAX. We need it up Lincoln Boulevard. We need it down into the coast. You know, there's no coastal relief plan for anything west of the 405 in the entire Southern California. And we're in such gridlock, we need that going forward. So I appreciate you bringing up the Green Line. And thank you, folks, for listening to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. There are no further speakers in the queue. Mr. Clerk, would you please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote?
11 ayes.
Next item.
Item 20 was called special for cards from the public.
First speaker, only speaker, Donna Pearman. San Fernando Valley.
Okay, I guess this one. So, I'm Donna Perriman, Garcetti Fan Club. CRA should be taking care of our sidewalks. That's why the name redevelopment. Sidewalks, not just buildings, are part of its development. And with all the money they can spend on us, not just pad their pockets. Okay, that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. There are no speakers in the queue on this item. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote. Next item.
11 ayes.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Moving pretty quickly.
Item 21 was called special for cards from the public.
Donna Pearman in the San Fernando Valley.
No, 21. I just want to say CRA should be taking care of this, too.
Thank you very much. No speakers in the queue on that. Please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item.
Item 22 called special for cards from the public.
Speaker Donna Pearman and Miriam Fogler.
I didn't put in for a number. Oh, well, okay, I'll just say CRA should be taking care of this, too.
Miriam Fogler, thank you very much.
Why don't you just call the City of Los Angeles the CRA of Los Angeles? Because that's what you're doing. And you're lining your pockets with all the developers' money, and of course getting sweetheart deals to private owners who get the reaps of the benefits from the public monies, and the public gets the shaft. And you want to raise taxes by blaming 13 for all of it. So you know that the crux of the problem is the redevelopment, and it has to go. Tomorrow needs a no vote. Needs to go down. And if the city of Los Angeles and the county and the state and the federal government wants to save itself from doomsday, you better do so, because if you don't, you're going to have a catastrophe from the taxpayer, because they're not going to keep coughing up, because if you don't, you take people's homes and take people's jobs away and then don't have anything, they're going to be up the creek. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No speakers in the queue. Mr. Clerk, if you please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item.
Item 23 called special for cards from the public.
And again, Donna Pearman and Miriam Fogler, please.
Okay, Councilman Rosendahl, you didn't mention Wilshire Boulevard anyway. Let's fix the bus problem. It can take up to 30 minutes or more to go from Westwood Village to Wilshire and Bundy. We need more buses, not to fix the sidewalks that are okay. We need bus benches, not sidewalk maintenance. Please fix West LA. It's really terrible.
And use CRA money for it.
Thank you, Miriam Fogler.
Hello. I just want to say that I'm adding to hers, and that the CRA should be taking care of all these, the amenities of the city, should be taking care of everything. We should be disbanding that agency and putting it into our city here, and giving the money back to the county, and get rid of the Grand Avenue project, because this is all it is benefiting the developers and the big time owners who's going to take public money, public land away from the people and hand it to themselves and become the rich of the world here with the Grand Avenue Hotel there. And this to me it's an absolute tragedy that's taking place. And also giving the church on Mahoney on First Street was a tragedy too. That's public land that you gave to the church. That's against church and state. And this is all constitutional, and that's why you shouldn't be passing these assessments against the people, period. The sidewalks is part of your job to keep the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No speakers on the queue. Next item. I'm sorry. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item.
Item 28 was called special for cards from the public.
Mr. Zumadog is our first speaker.
On the realist though, just want to be real brief. Special event fee waivers we've got. This is the city picks up the price tag essentially by waiving the fees for things like collections and things they need. Right here it says the AFI Lifetime Achievement Awards on June 7th. The city will be paying for the AFI Lifetime Achievement Awards. Zumadog would like to say, can you please amend that? Why don't you make it the LAUSD Student Achievement Awards? I'd be more impressed with that. I don't think the city should be paying for AFI. That's professional Hollywood films and things, and let them pay for it. It's a big convention. And then also right here we got another one. This is relative to declaring the 2007 AFI commencement ceremonies. How about the LAUSD commencement ceremonies? There's not enough of that going on, so why don't you take some of the money you're going to pay for this professional Hollywood thing and put it to LAUSD, and we can increase the commencement and accountabilities, y'all. Yeah, Zumadog for city controller.
Next speaker is Sharon Brewer out in the Valley.
Hi, Sharon Brewer on item number 28. On today's agenda, we have 17 fee waivers for a total of $84,095. Again, something has to be done about these fee waivers that are coming across. For one day to be that high is not acceptable. Also, there is a council file that states that the insurance for the city doesn't become effective until the city council approves these special fee waivers, and you have a number of events that were on June 2nd, 6th, 9th, 4th, another on the 9th, that basically the city insurance wouldn't take effect if something happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Donna Pearman.
Again, we see the city paying for 17 events. We must have money galore. Why should everyone pay for events that are not known or attended by all? I see you love to spend our money. Why don't you spend your money or take it up a collection from your friend, the CRA?
Thank you very much. There are no further speakers in the queue. Please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
And there's been a request made to have items 16, 20 through 23 go forthwith. Without objection, that'll be the order. Our next item.
Item 30 called special for cards from the public.
Our speakers are Sharon Brewer and Miriam Fogler.
Hi, I'm speaking on item number 30 on today's agenda. And this has to do with an event that's was June 9th. The interesting thing about this was it started out on May 30th as a Will Reimburse the City event.
Now suddenly we have changed, and the city is supposed to waive all the fees. But again, there is no amount that is listed. So we now have a CD13 event that started out where they were going to pay for the event, that is now changed to the city is going to absorb it with no dollar amount. They need to start putting the dollar amount for these events so we can really keep proper track of how much money these events are costing the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No further speakers in the queue on that. I'm sorry, Ms. Fogler?
And I was supposed to be talking on 28.
You spoke on 28. This is item 30, Ms. Fogler?
No, I did not, ma'am. I did not speak on 28.
Do you wish to speak on item 30, ma'am?
Okay, I can do that. It's the same as 28. What's the difference? Because you're doing the same thing. You're just giving people favors, and you're not holding accountability here, and this is why we're in such a debt. We have a debt crisis going on here. I'm keeping track of my books with my life. The government should be doing the same. You guys, it's a part of being responsible to the taxpayers. If you're not going to do it, then step aside and let other people take over, because we need people here that are going to be doing the service to the taxpayers. That's what you're here for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no further speakers in the queue. Mr. Clerk, would you please open the roll? Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
All right. Thank you. Next item.
Item 34, called special for cards from the public.
Our speaker is Mr. Zumadog.
Yes, thank you. This is very important. It's something, track maps, which sounds pretty boring. Most people watching don't know what track maps are, but when you want to build a luxury skyscraper, it's kind of the first thing, like the overall blueprint of what you have to do to allow these to happen. And I don't know if you read the LA Weekly. Maybe some of the council members didn't read the LA Weekly article last week. You can go online. It regards smart growth. You call it smart growth. I call it dumb growth, because here's why. You got city planning people. You got council member Eric Garcetti, and who else was it? The mayor that was saying how, yes, the plan is to approve all these track maps. If you've got a single residence home, we got to claim eminent domain. There's an eminent domain ordinance being drafted that's going to allow the CRA to claim eminent domain. No room for single resident units anymore. It's going to be a 10-story skyscraper if it used to be 1 unit. If you're living in a 10-story skyscraper, it's going to be a 40 unit, and that's what these are all doing. Now, here's the thing. The city has admitted that there is no infrastructure regarding the transportation. We have not yet built the Fly California Magic Bullet Train. We have not built the subway to the sea. We have not expanded the roads and all these things. And the plan is we haven't added extra bus lines and gold rails and all the light rail. The plan is to build all these high density housings off of these track maps right here that are in violation of vacancy and zoning variances until the traffic is so bad from so much congestion that you all jump out of your cars and get on the bus. Only thing, we didn't build the bus systems yet, and we didn't build the bullet trains and the light rails. We didn't do it yet because we don't have the demand. We don't have the money yet. So you're going to be voting for billions and billions of dollars on the 08 ballot for the bullet train so that Arnold Schwarzenegger could get down here to yell at the mayor and be back in time for lunch with Maria. So that's the point. So it's backwards, the city of Los Angeles. Here's my summary. Zumadog legislative review. The city of Los Angeles does everything backwards. The plan is, as documented in the LA Weekly, to approve so much high density that there's no that your traffic's so bad you're going to jump out of the car, but we didn't fix the problem yet. Oh, that's messed up, y'all.
Thank you very much. There's no speakers in the queue. Please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Mr. Clerk, next order of business.
Madam President, item 35 was being held on the desk, and there was just a technical correction to add 2 account numbers, 15T as in Tom and 16D as in David. So the matter is before you now.
All right. Without objection, I think we can open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item.
Madam President, there is a special one, and the city attorney will speak to the findings.
Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Madam President. Since the posting of the agenda, city staff has determined that the need to transfer funds for the fire department due to brush clearance and overtime. There is an immediate need to act before the June 18th controller deadline. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
All right, I think we need to vote on the findings first. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Matters now before us. No speakers in the queue. All right, well, then go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Does this matter need to go forthwith? All right, without objection, the matter will go forthwith. Any additional items, Mr. Clerk?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motions are posted and referred.
That does clear the desk.
No excuses on the desk?
Not today.
All right, very good. All right, that clears the desk. Are there any announcements? Mr. Labange.
Thank you. With John Kirk Muckery and Mark Schul, the planner for the Department of Recreation and Parks, I spent 2 hours hiking in Griffith Park this morning, and pleased to see so much, although be it a little, life is coming back. It was 5 weeks today that we had that horrible fire. Efforts are being made, and I thank for all your support to help restore, which will take several years, this great part of the park, bring the equestrians back, which are so important, the hikers, the runners, all into this wonderful park. And I know there's a motion coming forward, Mr. City Attorney, at the appropriate time, to ask the CAO to look for additional help for recreation and parks, so that your districts don't get hurt because of the disaster in Griffith Park. I thank you, and it was beautiful to see the park this morning, and it's coming back.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Ms. Gruhl, did you have anything
Naturally.
else?
Adjourning motion.
Okay, Ms. Hahn, adjourning?
Adjourning motion.
Oh, okay. Mr. Rosendahl, any announcements? All right, great, thank you. We'll go to adjourning motions. Ms. Gruhl, you have an adjourning motion.
Yes. Colleagues, I'd ask that we adjourn in memory of two individuals. The first is a woman by the name of Betty Fournier, who passed away on Tuesday, May 22nd. She passed away at the age of 92. She was born August 15th, 1915, and she came with her parents in 1929 as her father was transferred by the company he worked for, and she attended Beverly Hills High School during that time. She was twice honored as Queen of Job's Daughter at Bethel 63 in Beverly Hills. She married in 1938 and had her son David in 1940, and in 1947 her son Lee was born. They moved to Van Nuys, which is now called Sherman Oaks, in 1950 and lived in that same home until her death in 2007. I had the pleasure of knowing Betty and know her son Lee very well, and David, through the Congregational Church of the Times, which my father was one of the founding members there in Sherman Oaks. And Betty was a familiar face at the church, as is Lee. He continues to be an active member there, and was someone who always had a smile on her face and was committed to the community and the neighborhood. And so I'd ask that we adjourn in her memory. She is survived by two sons, David and Lee Fournier, and I thank you for that. My next adjourning motion is someone who is not unfamiliar to many of us, and I know, Jan, you will remember this gentleman, is Bob Vilmer, Robert Vilmer, who passed away on Thursday, May 31st. He worked for the Economic and Youth Opportunities Agency and came to Los Angeles in 1974 as part of the CETA program staff. And he worked for the CLA and assisted in the formation of the department we now call the Community Development Department. He and I met during my time in Bradley's office, where we began the first cold, wet weather program in the city. And Marty, his wife, was sharing with me and reminding me about the times that Tom Bradley would call him all hours of the night to say, did we open up that shelter we said we were going to do? Did we do the things we wanted to in the urban campground that was created? To a variety of issues. And Bob was one of those people that had the biggest heart. He cared about this community, he cared about this city, and he cared about his fellow employees. And he was someone who always came up with a great idea, was here in the morning, late at night, caring about the people of the city. And he was taken from us way too soon. He was actually the city's first homeless program coordinator, and he worked through 2001 in CDD, where he worked on the traffic safety program. He was honored in 2003 for more than 38 years of outstanding work on anti-poverty programs and subject areas. And Bob Vilmer was just someone that we know cared deeply about people and poverty issues. And I talked to Marty yesterday, and it's been a really challenging time because he was the love of her life, and they did so many things together. They met at CDD and worked on a lot of programs there. And so I just want to send our love out to Marty LaHive, the CDD family, and all of Bob's family, who know that we will miss him quite a bit. He died at a young age of 69. He would have been 70 in the next few
I think we should
weeks.
have all members sign on to that.
Great. Thank you very much. And I know Marty doesn't live in Los Angeles, so we told her we'd send her the tape of today. So Marty, we're all thinking about you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I know we in this country have lost, I think, almost 3,500 soldiers, and growing every day. I think we lost 100 last month. And we try to stay connected to those that we've lost, and we just went through Memorial Day, and we're coming up on Flag Day, and when we're probably all going to remember them. But I wanted us to adjourn our council today in the memory of 3 soldiers who had a connection to the South Bay, and actually all had a connection to Wilmington and San Pedro. And they passed away last month. 2 of them passed away on May 23rd, and 1 of them passed away on May 28th. And they got some attention when it happened, but we've been unable to adjourn in their memory for various reasons. But I thought their families would really particularly appreciate it if they knew that among all the tributes they've gotten across the country, that the LA City Council also stopped to remember their sons. One was Corporal Joseph Anzac, Jr., who we heard a lot about from Torrance, only 20, and passed away May 23rd. His mother, Teresa, was actually from San Pedro, and his father, Joseph, was from Torrance. And I want us to stop and remember him today. On the same day, Army Specialist Daniel Cagle also died on the same day as Joseph. Only 3 days after his birthday, he was only 22. He actually attended Dana Middle School in San Pedro. Again, I think I feel a connection to Danny Cagle, and so I wanted us to remember him today. And then the third one was Specialist Alexandre Alexiev, who passed away on May 28th, and he was 23 years old. He actually came from Moscow to the U.S. in 1999, lived in Lake Arrowhead, but just recently had moved to Wilmington, and only was deployed 6 months ago. So I wanted us to adjourn in those 3 soldiers' names, and I wanted to read a poem that Alexandre wrote on his MySpace page before he passed away. As I look into the sky, I see shooting star or a missile. Hard to tell the difference, but I close my eyes and still make a wish, hoping to see her again. And I think that probably was something that all of our soldiers probably think every day, that they're going to wake up, they're going to go to sleep tonight, and they're going to wake up tomorrow and keep living their lives. Unfortunately, they're not. And so I think it's appropriate that we take as much time as we can to just pause, remember them, and to adjourn our our meeting in their honor.
Ms. Hahn, would you like all members to sign on to that?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaBonge?
Thank you, Ms. Hahn, for the very important tributes. Danielle Deeby, I ask we adjourn in her memory. She's survived by her husband, George. Members, I also ask we adjourn in memory of Ralph Ginsburg. Some of us Valley Council members will remember him. He always took pictures at many events. Lived to be 89, a graduate of John Marshall High, believe it or not. Ralph Ginsburg. Hope that all young people could live the age of Ralph.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaBonge. Mr. Rosendahl? Any?
Oh, no.
Mr. Smith? No? All right, Mr. Zine?
Thank you. Request to adjourn in memory of Jay Atarian, passed away June 3rd, born in Los Angeles, July 6, 1925. He was an Army corporal, served during Korean War. real estate broker for 50 years, and was president of Jason Realty Company, located in downtown Los Angeles, then relocated to Van Nuys, and finally to Woodland Hills. Specialized in raw land, ranches, commercial, and income property. In 1962, Jay joined the Wilshire Downtown Optimist Club and became club president in 1967. Went up the ranks to the position of governor of the Pacific Southwest District in 72. Held various positions on international committees and then served as an international vice president in 1975 and was president of Optimist International in 1985. Was an active member of the Van Nuys Airport Optimist Club until the day of his death. Was an elder in the Presbyterian Church and served as director of finance for many years on the board of directors. Dedicated family man, married to his wife Virginia for 54 years. Together they had 3 children, Keith, Eileen, and Bruce, 2 grandchildren, and he will be greatly missed by his family and friends, survived by his children, Keith, Eileen, Bruce, and 2 grandchildren. May he rest in peace. Jay Atarian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. No further adjourning motions. Mr.